Hey everybody, I'm here with my Ford Ranger Raptor. I bought this thing back in March. I've had it for 4 months now. I put 7,000 miles on it. I've driven in and out of DC a bunch. I've driven on highways around. I've taken one 800-mile trip in it, all in one day. It was a miserable day, but the truck itself ran great and was comfortable. I've gone out on the fire roads. I've gone out on the trails. I've done some off-roading. I mean, this thing is great. I've had zero mechanical issues. And I did my entire video yesterday, and when I edited it, it was like 50 minutes long. So it's very detailed. If you're interested in this truck, it's a great video because I made it for people like myself who are looking at the next truck they're gonna buy and things that I've noticed about it, things I love about it, things I wish were different about it. But for 99% of you, you just wanna know, hey man, you've had this thing for 4 months and 7,000 miles. Have you had any issues? No, I have had zero issues. I still love it. It's an awesome truck. It does everything really well. I have had a lot of different vehicles before this. I've had an Eco Diesel Gladiator. I had the Explorer ST, which has the same engine and transmission. I've had two Tacomas, one TRD Sport, one TRD Off-Road. I had a Ford Focus ST and a Focus RS. I've had a couple different BMWs. A lot of them were M3s. The vehicle I traded for this was a 2016 M3. So that's the kind of vehicle that I enjoy driving, and this thing is really my favorite of all of them. I wouldn't trade this for any one of those to have back, and I wouldn't trade this for any vehicle that's currently on the market in the same price range. So I love it. It has not like developed any weird creaks or rattles or noises or anything like that. I did upgrade the entire stereo. I put sound deadener in the doors, sound deadener in the headliner. I put some lights up here. I put a light in the front. I put the amber marker lights. I have my whole setup on the back that when I go off-roading for real, I take it off because it's a whole lot of weight up there. I talk about the fact that you have to have load box reinforcement brackets, which is crazy to me. And then I go through the differences between the US version, the US spec version, and all the different versions in the other global markets on this truck. So, but the bottom line up front, if you don't want to stick around for 50 minutes, I'll tell you right now, this thing is awesome. I have zero buyer's remorse. I'm not like constantly looking at other vehicles thinking like, oh man, that has that, I wish mine had that. I love everything about this truck. It's great. There are times when I miss my M3. There are times when I miss my Explorer ST when I wanted to fit the entire family comfortably in there. Back seat in this, it's a Ranger. It's big enough for my kids. It's not all that big for a 6'3" person to sit behind another 6'3" person in the driver's side. So, but you could fit car seats in here, no issue with that. Anyway, that's it. I go through all the differences. Actually, I will tell you the differences because that's one of the big things in the 5-minute version of this that I'm going to tell you. In the US, we have an aluminum hood. A lot of others have steel. Aluminum's lighter, it's great for that, heat dissipation, but if you wanted to put the struts, instead of the prop rod, you're putting a whole lot of torque on a piece of sheet aluminum instead of steel, and it flexes a lot. So I had the struts, I ended up taking them off. You get a little bit further back, all of the drivetrain in here, all of your axles and your U-joints and everything like that are not coated. They're just straight up cast iron and they're all rusty from the factory. It's just the way it is. It's like that in a lot of vehicles, but the other global market Ranger Raptors have coated drive shafts. So it'd be nice if we had that. Mine came rusted, I painted them, no big deal. You get inside the vehicle, we don't have grab handles on the driver's side. In Australia, they have it on both sides. In the back, you have your grab handle up here where you'd like put your coat hangers. In some of the other global markets, they have it on the B pillar, so you reach in here and you have it to get in there. I think the biggest difference that makes no sense to me why they did it is we do not have air vents coming out of the center console for the backseat passengers. But in Australia and the Philippines and South Africa, they have air vents in the back. I don't know why they would have deleted that for the United States. It gets hot here in a lot of states in the summer. So it would have been cool, but we do have a power sliding rear window. And then when you get back to the back, the tailgate is different, the third brake light is different. That to me makes no difference at all. That's not a big deal, but the functional things like the drive shafts not being coated, no air conditioning vents, the grab handles being in different places. And I think actually some of the other ones have more cup holders. Like we have two in the middle. And I just saw this on Facebook the other day, there's like cup holders underneath the air vents on the Australian. I'm going off topic, this is longer than 5 minutes now. So anyway, 4 months, 7,000 miles. I love this truck, I wouldn't trade it. It's great. mechanically very sound. The engine transmission is great. Transfer case and the differentials are super easy to manipulate from inside the cabin. And that's it. If you're thinking about this truck, you're probably also looking at a TRD Pro. You're probably also looking at a ZR2 or an AT4 or ATX. I think it's the AT4. But like those are the ones that compare to it. I know the Dakota's coming out. They keep talking about it, but I've never been a huge Dodge fan. I mean, I did have the Jeep Gladiator, but that's a Jeep, not a Dodge, but it's all what Chrysler used to be. I don't know what it is anymore. Anyway, I did look at those. I think the TRD Pro was out for me because the price was so high, and every Toyota that I've had just seems a little underpowered. My wife's Toyota Sienna is amazing. We've had it for 12 years. It still runs really well, but it's kind of boring. So, and then the ZR2 is more of a rock crawler. I like the Baja and the V6 twin turbocharged with 400 horsepower. I couldn't say no to that. The ZR2 is awesome. And the Bison has like way more skid plates, bigger 35-inch tires. It's more for rock crawling. It's got higher approach angles, higher departure angles, more clearance by like an inch or two. I know there's more differences than that, but those are like the big ones up front that I could think of. But it has a 4-cylinder motor, still puts out like 350, 360 horsepower and a fair amount of torque. But I've already gone off topic and I'm making my quick 5-minute bottom line up front into what the actual thing is. So I'm done. If you're thinking about a Ranger Raptor, get it. It's awesome. You might still have to pay a markup. I paid $2 grand over for this thing back when I bought it in March, but it was worth it to me. I know a lot of people say I'm the reason that they have to pay markups, and maybe I am, but I'm not the only one. And a lot of people are willing to pay for the things they want, even though it's a little more than everybody else is willing to pay for it. That's just free market. That's capitalism. Hey everybody, got my Ranger Raptor here. I've had this thing for 4 months now. I've driven it 7,000 miles, and I absolutely love it. At no point have I been looking at the next vehicle I'm gonna get. I go through cars a lot. It drives my wife nuts. I made note cards so I don't just ramble on about random crap. In the 17 years we've been married, I've had 22 different vehicles. So I go through them in, less than a year more often than not, which is a terrible financial decision. But if you love cars, it's hard to just stick with one. But I really do think I found, I don't want to say this is my forever car because there will always be something cool in a couple of years, but this makes me happy in every single way. It's fun to drive. I mean, it's not a muscle car or a sports car, but it is a sporty truck. 400 horsepower, 10-speed transmission. You put this thing in sport mode and it goes. It's really fun. Like you'll be 0 to 60 I've done in 5.6 seconds. So it's definitely a quick truck. The suspension is phenomenal in this thing. It feels so well planted all the time. The steering is great. It's nice and tight and you feel everything in the road, but not in an uncomfortable way. It's not like it's rattling you, but if you're out on a trail or you're on a dirt road or you hit a pothole or something, obviously you're gonna feel a pothole in whatever vehicle you're in. But this thing, it absorbs it all so well. The entire cabin doesn't shake, but you feel what's going on, which is a very comforting thing. Anyway, I'm off topic. This thing is great. I love everything about it. No buyer's remorse at all. Normally, when I buy a vehicle, within a month or two, I love every car that I've had, but I'm always looking at what else is out there. I did look at the TRD Pro when I was looking at this. I looked at the ZR2 Bison when I looked at this. TRD Pro was kind of out because the price was so high. I didn't really want a hybrid system with a motor and an engine like running in tandem. I know that there are sporty cars, the Acura NSX does that, but to me, I wanted one or the other, and I'm always gonna be an internal combustion kind of guy, and a 6-cylinder over a 4-cylinder and some motors. And that thing has a lot of power, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't what I wanted. A lot of the people that I talked to that traded in the previous model for the newer model of Toyota regret trading it in. That's probably not everybody. I don't talk to everybody who has a Toyota, but the couple people that I have on both the Tundra and the Tacoma, they say they wish they kept their old one. So I didn't want to be one of the new guys getting the brand new TRD off-road. I have seen it. It does look phenomenal. It's a cool looking truck. But again, I like this one. The ZR2 Bison, or the ZR2 in general, is really great. I was just looking at the Bison because it had the 35-inch tires. It had way more undercarriage protection, which this thing does not have a ton of undercarriage protection. Yeah, you've got this big aluminum bash plate here. You've got one skid plate protecting the the engine oil pan, which is plastic. You have nothing protecting the transmission, but it is tucked up about 6 inches higher than that skid plate for the engine oil pan. So that's kind of out of the way. The transfer case has a little skid plate under it. The entire gas tank is on the driver's side. It's plastic, which is not surprising, but it just has like a plastic tub under it. No protection, but I don't think a whole lot of vehicles have gas tank protection. But for such a big thing that's down the left-hand side and at the same level as everything else, it'd be nice if it had a little more protection. Overall, I mean, it's pretty good. I've hit the skid plates. It's definitely, they do well up front, but I will be looking at a kit to kind of get something underneath the transmission and further back. Maybe an aluminum skid plate for the gas tank, maybe not. I don't want to go crazy with it and like spend $2 grand just to cover the entire bottom of this thing, but I definitely want to protect the transmission, because that is also a plastic transmission oil pan or transmission fluid pan. So, you know, it just makes me a little nervous. I know a lot of vehicles now have plastic oil pans and transmission pans. They're easier to mold. You can put some different baffling in it. And plastic is pretty strong these days, but I'm old school, so the idea of a metal oil pan is always appealing. All right, let me get back on track. So I had a Explorer ST, which has the same engine and transmission setup as this. So those have been running. They have a lot of really good longevity behind them, because the 2020 is when that vehicle came out. So it's been running for 4 years now, and there has been no major problems. There was some stuff with the rear differential in that, where they went from 2 bolts to 1 bolt holding it in, and a couple other things, but I haven't heard any major things about the engine. One thing a lot of people that have really any EcoBoost or any turbocharged car is they'll put an oil catch can. I don't know all of the mechanics behind it, but I do know that in a turbocharged car, you've got all that extra pressure, you're blowing some oil by, and it ends up back in the intake. So like if you were to take your charge pipe off of your intercooler, you might find oil in there. So the idea of the catch can is to catch that oil before it goes up into your intake. I haven't put one on here yet, but I probably will. But the engineers, they put PCV valves, they do some other stuff, but the oil catch cans are a thing. A lot of people talk about how great they are. I didn't have one on my Explorer ST, but again, I only had that car for 1.5 years. And then I've never put it on my BMW or anything like that. And I've never heard anybody in some of those other sports cars with turbos talking about oil catch cans. It always seems to be trucks and SUVs, but I'm not that deep into the car world. So maybe it is a thing on all vehicles and I just don't know it. But anyway, I will be looking at an engine oil catch can for this eventually, and I should probably get it sooner rather than later. That's not even on my note card. See, I don't even stick to my note cards. Traded an M3 for this. This is not an M3. It is same power as an M3, but it's 1,500 pounds heavier. It's got way more unsprung mass, and it also has way more spinning metal in the drivetrain. So you've got an entire transfer case and drive shafts going forward. You've got bigger, thicker drive shafts and a big old honking differential in the back that has a locking mechanism both front and back. So there's just extra everywhere in this thing, and then the suspension's bigger. So not only are you moving 1,500 more pounds down the road, you're spinning up several hundred more pounds, maybe not several hundred, but you're spinning up more weight, and your unsprung weight of your actual wheels and stuff. I mean, taking a wheel off an M3 or my M3, I could take it off and I could hold it in one hand. I mean, it was not light. It's not like it was 5 or 10 pounds, but it was definitely doable. When I take the wheels off this, they're heavy. They're freaking huge. And I've got the beadlock capable wheels. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I know the beadlock capable wheels are a little heavier than the regular ones, but even still, just the size of the tire and the wheel and everything, they're significant. I didn't weigh it, but I would say like maybe 80 pounds, maybe 100. I don't know. I'm not a good judge of weight. So anyway, just something to think about. Tacomas, I think I already talked about that. I had 2 2004 Tacomas. One was the TRD Sport, one was the TRD Off-Road. They were both great trucks. They lasted and they were capable off-road, but they were just kind of, I don't want to say gutless, but they were definitely underpowered. For a 4-liter 6-cylinder engine, you would expect more out of it than that. But they detune them, they run them rich so that they run cooler, and they run forever, but they're, I don't want to say boring because they are fun, but just nothing like this. And I know people are out there putting pro chargers on it, supercharging. Never talk to anybody who turbocharged it, but that's just a lot more work. You can strap on a blower a lot easier than you can a turbo. But anyway, I never did that to my Tacomas, and never met anybody in person that did that to theirs. And I just came from Hawaii, where Tacoma is like the state truck out there. Everybody has a Tacoma. If you show up in anything else, people are looking at you like you're not cool. You're not a, you know, I was a Haole, I'm not a Hawaiian, but Tacoma was definitely the truck to have out there. But then again, the Ranger Raptor hadn't come out yet. I bet this would fit in pretty well out there now. So let's see, what else did I actually put on here so I can talk about what's on the freaking cards? I've driven this thing in a lot of traffic in and out of DC, on a lot of highways. I've gone out on the fire roads out west of here. I've gone out on a couple Jeep trails, and this thing is fun really everywhere you drive. On the twisty turny roads, not as fun as a M3 or a different sports car. You can feel the fact that it has all that extra weight. You can feel the fact that it has 8-inch thick sidewalls when you get that, you know, that kind of slushy feeling that you don't get in a like 1.5-inch sidewall on a really stiff tire in a sports car. But it's still super fun. The brakes work really well. The steering is super responsive, I guess is the word. I don't want to say it's not like it's snappy, but you feel everything on the road, but not in an uncomfortable, jarring way. You definitely know what your tires are doing. And when you do slip or lose a little bit of traction, it's not a crazy jarring thing, but you feel it. And I mean, it has a lot of nannies. I haven't driven it with all that stuff off yet, but it's definitely a very comfortable feeling. It's better than the Gladiator. The Gladiator was a solid front end or a solid axle in the front. And I mean, that thing was beefy, don't get me wrong, but it just was not fun to drive, not comfortable to drive. And then the Tacomas, these were 2004 Tacomas, so they're 20 years old now, but they just felt looser, everything about it. And you felt, I don't want to say detached, but you didn't feel like you were feeling the road, kind of like you do in a BMW, like you feel every little bump, but not in a terrible way. That's the same for this. So I really like the way this steering is. And then when you switch it from comfort steering or normal steering or sport steering, it just stiffens up a little bit. It's not a drastic change. It's not like it takes all the feel out of it when you go to normal. It's just a little bit less, and stiff isn't the right word either. I don't know. I'm not a race car driver. I can't explain these things. I just know that I like all the modes. Normal, you put in a sport, you feel a little more, it's not like it changes the ratios either. It just feels different. It feels good. This is very helpful, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm going to move on before I make too much more of an idiot of myself here. When I bought this thing, it was March. It was really cold out, but not snowing and frozen. So I did use the heated seats and the heated steering wheel. Freaking awesome. And then right now it's like 100 degrees for the last week, and it's going to be 105 next week, and it's just been miserable. But the AC in this thing works phenomenally. It does not have vents for the back though, so that is a serious bummer. It has like foot vents for heater, and I thought I could force the AC to come out through the foot vents, and it does come out through the driver's foot vents, but when you put your hand back there in the back where the heat would come out for the passengers in the back, there's no cold air getting pushed out of there. So it's the only way you can get cold air to the guys in the back in the United States, because over in like the Philippines and Australia, they have rear vents coming out of the center console. We don't have them here. So you gotta like aim your vents from the two in the middle back towards the guys in the back. And it's not a very big cabin, and it blows a lot of air. So you can definitely get some air back there. But it's just, you know, one thing that's kind of a bummer. You do have a power sliding rear window, so you can open that up and crack the windows, and once you start driving, you get some airflow. But it's just a bummer that they have it in some other, in this vehicle in other markets in the world, but they didn't do it in the United States. So that's just, there's a couple different things that I wish they did. Like, we don't have the grab handle on the driver's side. Australia, they have them on both sides. In the Philippines, I think it was, like, they actually have the rear, the oh shit bars or the grab handles on the B pillar, not up in the overhead where your coat hangers go. So little things like that they did different. It's surprising that they did so much different. And then since we're in the front of the truck, one of the biggest differences that I didn't even know about until recently was that we have an aluminum hood. In Australia, for example, they have a steel hood. So, and the reason I know this is I ordered the hood struts and ditch light mounts from Australia, and it's basically, it uses the bolts for the hood, and it puts a strut down here so you don't have to have the prop rod, and it'll come up. But this thing is aluminum, and you're putting all this torque when you're pulling back down from here, all that torque you're putting down there all this tension from here is getting pulled down, and it's just this little bit of aluminum here. So I ended up detaching the struts because I was afraid I was gonna break the thing. And then some other people were telling me that that was a common thing in Chevys a while back, where they would just taco the hood and you just bend the thing. So I'm glad I disconnected them like 2 days after I put them on there. So I don't know, I could get different struts that aren't quite as powerful, but even then, the idea that when it's all the way up, the wind could catch it, all these things. This hood is not made for that, apparently. They didn't engineer it that way. So when you have the prop stand or the hood prop up, not only does it hold it from falling down, but it has a clip so it holds the wind from catching it and blowing it up. When you have the struts, all of this, I mean, you think about an airplane can lift itself on a wing that's not overly huge with, you know, they rotate about 140, 160 depending on the aircraft. But when when the wind is blowing at 30 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, if you have the hood up, this is a big surface for it to catch. And all of that weight, normally, the way it's engineered, you have the 2 hinges and the prop rod, so it's holding it, it'll flex a little bit. But if all you have are the hood struts, all of this stuff is just all that, you know, on 2 spots back there, all that torque and tension. We all know about foot-pounds and all that stuff. Basically, you have 3 feet from front to back, so anything you put here is multiplied. Again, not on my notes, so I'm just going off script completely on this. So I'm gonna bring the camera up here and just show you the couple things I have done. So I put the amber marker lights in the front of my truck. I also installed a 32-inch aux beam off-road light back and behind here. And then I put the ditch lights. So there's the off-road lights. That's with all of them on. I mean, it's not really bright up high, but down here, if you get lower, I'm gonna be sideways here, but it's a bright light. But really, the whole point of going in there was not to show you the lights, but to open the hood. This thing has a hook, so it doesn't go up, doesn't come down. It's held on. You can see it flexing a little bit, but the struts were going from right here to there, and when I had to push it down, I was pulling it so hard you could see it bending around the hinge here. I mean, it's just 2 bolts here holding the entire hood all the way out here. So I was probably pulling down with 30 or 40 pounds of pressure here, which over 3 feet, that's like 120 foot-pounds of torque on just that little piece of sheet aluminum in there that it was holding on to. Anyway, it's not a poor design from the guys who I bought the thing from in Australia, because they have steel hoods. It is just, this hood's not made for those, so I'm not gonna put them back on there. I know that there are some that actually go from here all the way up here, so you're pulling more directly on it. Again, I wasn't comfortable with it, so I'm not doing it. I put in the amber lights. These are from Indy Carbon. I also installed a 32-inch light bar behind the grille. It mounted to 2 factory bolts that were in there. It's like maybe a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch too far over, so I had to put a bolt right there in that bracket, but it fit. I had to trim a little bit here and a little bit of the little plastic thing that holds the louvers that open and close for the radiator, but not structural. It's just there for those, and everything still functions perfectly. Inside here you have auxiliary switches. So you have auxiliary switch 6 is a 25 amp with a power and a ground, and then you've got 3 switches here. So you have 1, 2, and 5 coming out right here. 1 is a 5 amp, 2 and 5 are 15 amp, I believe, and it's only the power, so you've got to get your own ground, which is easy. You ground it to anything. Like, that's a ground right there. Let's see, those are all grounding points right there. There's nothing in it, but this is basically made for grounding, so anything go into the chassis you can use to ground. I had to take the grill off. It's not hard to do. This is a trim piece. You snap it off. It's got like 8 clips all the way across. You got to be careful with it, but it's pretty easy to pull off. You just stick something in there, pop it off. There's 3 screws here. There's 2 screws up here once you get all of these little clips off, and this whole thing comes off. So again, I've done that in other videos. If you want to see it, just go back to the video where I install any of this stuff, and I'll show you how it shows you how I took the entire grill apart. I've probably taken it off 6 or 8 times. Very easy. It always goes back on and clips very well, so it's not like you're gonna screw it up. It's not like a, you know, mid-90s door panel that never goes back on the same way. So you guys have already seen the interior of these and all the other videos that are out there. I mean, I'll just tell you, I like it a lot. I think the interior is good. I like the little red trim and stuff like that. My driver's seat is a little bit loose on the upholstery. It's been that way since day one when I bought this truck. It is what it is. I talked to Ford about it initially at the dealership, and they just said, you know, that's the way it is. So you sit in the seat, it's gonna loosen up. While I don't agree with that, my wife's Sienna is like 2012 and the seats are not doing that at all, but it's not something that I'm losing sleep over by any means. In the driver's seat, you have these memory buttons here, so I'm the only one that drives it. So number 1 is set to me, 2 and 3 are just whatever 2 and 3 were from the factory. The floor mats that come with the truck are these rubber, they're not WeatherTech, but it's that same idea where they're like rubber and they've got the Raptor in it, and they're nice. It saves you from having to go out and get some, you know, actual all-weather type floor mats. So it's cool that it comes with it. I wasn't going to talk about it, but in a lot of videos, people comment, hey, what kind of phone mount is that? So this is just a Mophie MagSafe vent mount. It's pretty great in the sense that it's out of the way. There's really no hard points over here that you can hook up to. So I like it a lot. It does block the AC over here. And after about 4 or 5 months of using it, I couldn't tighten this thing anymore. So it started like when I was off-roading. On the regular freeway and stuff and speed bumps, nothing happens. When you're off-roading a lot, it'll slowly start to lower down. So what I did is I actually took some Loctite thread locker and put it on the ball and tightened everything back down there. So now it's pretty much glued in there. But the way these things work is they push on the front of the actual vanes, and then there's a hook that goes and pulls on the back. So it really only fits on this vent here because it's above the side-to-side thing. You can't move it up and down now because it's basically pinching on the little vanes. If you put it on this side, it hits the side here. So instead of this thing being up against the vanes that you're pulling on, this thing is up on the trim, and then you're putting weird torque on the vanes against the trim. So you're really starting to bind up the mechanism. And that's, you tighten it enough, you're gonna break it. You're actually putting pressure on the moving parts as opposed to the solid plastic. So the way I have it here is basically it's squishing solid plastic versus over here, it's actually on a trim thing. So it's actually torquing on the plastic. So again, it's a Mophie MagSafe. It's also a charger. It does a really good job. I like it a lot, and I can just throw my phone up there and it'll hook up the sync. So anyway, that's a Mophie MagSafe. It only has like 3.5 or 4 stars on Amazon, but I love it. It does a really good job. I don't know what other people expect from it, but the only other phone mount that I've had that I really liked was the quad lock, where you put it on there and you twist it. And Mophie is not the only company that makes it, but I can tell you with certainty that the Mophie fits perfectly on the driver's side vent without putting any weird strain on the vent vanes or hitting the side-to-side tab. But when your phone's on there, you're blocking this entire vent. Air's still coming out, so you're moving air into the cabin, but it's not blowing on your face like it does from these. But I just point these at me, and I normally drive by myself. With this vehicle, and I think it's actually my phone and not the vehicle, the more I use it, but when I turn the vehicle on, it says it's hooked up to my phone. It says it's playing. The timer's going across. I look at my phone on Pandora or Audible or whatever. It's playing. The volume is up, and nothing's coming out of the speakers. So I've tried turning the volume all the way down or up. I've tried pushing the on-off button. I've tried stopping and starting the playing on both things, and they do talk to each other. And then I can like go in on my phone to Google Maps and put it in somewhere that I want to go, and it shows up on here. So there's communication happening, but the audio is not coming through. And I don't know if it's because the phone is hooked up to some other Bluetooth thing, and for some reason it's sending the audio there or what. But whenever that happens, I just have to unpair my phone and pair it. It takes like 10 seconds, 5 seconds, and then it starts working every single time. That has, not once has that not fixed it, but it is super frustrating that it's like more often than not, that's the case. So anyway, I guess just accept it. I mean, it's better than the alternative of having to plug your phone in to get it hooked up, or like having to have a cassette tape in there to hook up to it. what we had to do back in the 90s. Anyway, technology is great. Every once in a while there's little hiccups, so you just got to you find your workaround, or you complain about it. I complained about it for a couple days, and then I realized, whatever, I can fix it. I just disconnect, reconnect. It takes about 5 or 10 seconds. I'm on my way. I'm listening to music, good to go. And for the last week, I haven't had it happen once. So, but the week before that, it happened every single time I got in my vehicle. So I don't know what was going on, and I have yet to figure out, like, oh, it always happens when I have my Ray-Ban Metas in my car. It always happens when I have my AirPods and I just had one. Like, there's got to be something that I'm doing. I don't think it's a flaw in the system, but I know other people have had the issue too. B&O 10 speaker system is pretty decent for a stock stereo, but ever since I started driving in the 90s, I've always done my own car stereos. I used to put like 212s or 215s and thousands of watts of power to all of these things, and I've always liked loud music. This was not that. It was pretty good. It was pretty well balanced. And that was when I was driving and it was cold outside, so I had the windows up and the heaters on and everything, and not a whole lot of ambient noise. But once it started getting warm and I was riding with the windows down, I realized I couldn't turn this thing up loud enough to hear over the windows being down, or as loud as I wanted it to be. So I put in a Kicker Hideaway 8-inch sub in the back. I put in upgraded 6x9s and tweeters up here, upgraded the door speakers, put a 4-channel 50 watt per channel amplifier with a digital sound processor in it. So basically I tore out the entire B&O system and put in my own, but you have to keep the factory amplifier because it does more than just the audio stuff. It takes the signal from like a USB, which is different. And I think they call it like a CAN, C-A-N, I don't know what that stands for, but it takes the signal and does a lot to it. So, and then there's also a separate signal processor up front because your tweeters from the factory, your tweeters and your center channel are on an amplifier somewhere up here. Your door woofers in the front, your door speakers are coaxials in the back, and then your subwoofers are all in the back amplifier. So I just basically disconnected the center channel, took out all the tweeters up here and put the tweeters from the door speaker and wired all of these off the amp in the back now. So basically the front amp is doing nothing. The back amp is just sending the signal, which is a full range signal, which is great because I didn't know what I was going to do if I couldn't find a full range signal. But send the signal to the amplifier, send the signal from the stock subwoofer to the powered subwoofer, and everything's working great. It's so much better. It's crystal clear. I didn't go crazy with like several $100 speakers. I just put like $105, $110 speakers in the front, $100 in the back, and a $200 subwoofer and a $200 4-channel amplifier with a digital signal processor. So like less than $600, $700, I did all of it. And then I also took all the door panels off and the headliner out and put sound deadener in all of the doors and the entire roof. I ran out of material, but eventually I'm going to buy more and do the floor pan and the back wall behind the back seat. But for now, that's what I have done. So another thing I did is instead of the factory rearview mirror, I basically got one of those that you just like clip onto your rearview mirror. It has a camera on it, and then it has a backup camera that I actually put down in the undercarriage looking forward. So when I'm out on the trails, I have like a video camera of under my truck at what exactly my wheels are about to hit. Because yes, you have the camera out on front looking forward and it gives you the tracks, but I like to be able to see exactly what the tires are on. Normally I'll just stick my head out the window or have someone with me, but it's pretty darn nice just to be able to bring up the camera right there and see, you know, exactly where your tires are going. So I like it a lot. It does get extremely hot, and I'm a little nervous about if it's going to mess up the actual factory rear view mirror, because there's a little bit of sensors in there. So it's self-dim or auto dimming. So it has a light sensor. It has something to change, you know, how reflective this thing is. Like the old ones, you had that button you push forward and back, so that it changed, like if someone was flashing their brights at you or had their high beams on behind you, you could flip it and not get blinded. Again, not on the card. I'm going way off script here. So anyway, I have this thing. It does really well. I almost hit a deer the other day. I got it on video. I showed my kids. They couldn't believe it. And it was crazy. But like I was inches from hitting this freaking deer. It came all the way across the highway, and I was looking on the passenger side because I just saw deer like 2 minutes before that sitting over there eating grass right on the side of the highway. So I'm focused out and on the right. This deer comes all the way across oncoming traffic, through the median, all the way across my lanes. I'm looking over here. I see it as it's coming in. I'm going 65, 70 miles an hour. It comes across, and if I'd changed nothing, I would have smacked right into it. Slammed on the brakes, veered left, and the deer was like underneath my wheel well. And of course, for that, I actually disconnected the undercarriage because I was driving 70 miles on the highway. It was going to be the most boring video ever. But that would have been great because I probably would have seen it right by the freaking tire. But anyway, didn't hit it. And I'll put that video in there because it's actually really good quality out of this little just, you know, all-in-one dash cam thing. And then I did the wires up in the headliner, down through the A-pillar, and all hidden. So, I mean, all of the power wires and everything are up here. It has GPS in it. It's not a sales pitch for this thing. I'm just saying I like it. It was super easy to put in there. The driver's seat is set for me. I'm 6'3". In the passenger side, or on the driver's side, if I get in here, it's tight. My knees are touching. My butt is all the way back. And there's actually the easy entry where it puts the seat back when you get out, when you turn the car on and off. I disabled that through the infotainment system because when my kids are back here, when I stop the car, it's not when you open the door, it's when you shut the car off, the seat starts coming back. And I didn't want to squish them or like have their feet down there and have them like twist an ankle or something. I don't know how much pressure this thing takes to realize it's hitting something before it stops. So I just disabled that. So this is set for a 6'3" driver. And again, I'm 6'3". I am that driver, and it's not comfortable back here. My head's not touching. So, I mean, I have the headroom up here, and I mean, I could sit back here for a little bit, but I don't have air vents. That sucks. I got to just hope the guys in front point air conditioner back to me. But on the passenger side, with the seat up a little bit more, it's actually not bad. So my daughter was sitting over there. She's shorter, but she has the seat leaned way back. I mean, knees are still touching, but my feet are further forward and I feel a lot better over here. I've got plenty of headroom. And honestly, she's my kid. I would say, put your freaking seat forward. I'm a grown up back here. I wouldn't be back here in the first place. But anyway, the passenger side is not nearly as bad. And then as a 6'3" driver, I have to have this back further on the driver's side because of the pedals. If I'm sitting over in this seat, I can have it forward and still be really comfortable. And then I could have someone my size back here behind me. And a rear-facing car seat would absolutely fit back here. I mean, I had a Ford Focus. I had the Focus ST and the Focus RS, and I had rear-facing car seats in both of those. You got to put the seat forward a little bit, but they'll definitely fit. So if you have kids, you can definitely get them all in here. And I did actually put 3 car seats across back here, and they all fit. They were all forward-facing, and there was a little bit of slack in there, so you could get all the seat belts put in and everything. So if you're trying to convince your wife that this is the perfect family vehicle, it is. This is the perfect family vehicle. All right, just show her that part. Moving on to the bed in the back of the truck. I bought this tonneau cover from a dude who had a 2019 to 23. He actually had a 22 Ranger Tremor, and when he bought it, it came with this cover. This is the Ford cover for the 19 to 23. It's got the little lock. You can open it up, and it slides all the way up into there. The bed cover is awesome. This is just a Yakima. This is called the Outpost. The overhaul is way taller, and it sticks up like 6 inches above the height of the cab if you get the overhaul. So the Outpost was perfect for me. It keeps it high enough that I can still see out the back window, low enough that this thing isn't all the way up, in the airflow. It is maybe 6 to 8 inches higher than the height of the cab, but it's like 2 inches higher than the little stubby antenna. So it's definitely still gonna fit in most places. It might have some issues going into like a parking garage. And then with these tonneau covers, they are not completely waterproof. So I still keep all my stuff in this bag here. Anything that I want to keep dry, I keep in this bag. And then I've got a couple chairs for when I go to the farm. And I have just, I don't want to say destroyed, I have beat the crap out of the bed of this truck. I've done a lot of stupid things in it. I had a couple water jugs. I've completely scratched the paint off over here. So, I mean, I'm going to get a spray and bed liner, but like that's just completely worn out. It was sitting in here with 6 gallons of paint, driving around, moving around, and it just wore all the way down to the sheet metal, all the way along there, and a little bit up here. Big old scratches everywhere, a big old dent in that wheel well. I mean, I'm bummed about it. This is a new truck, but it's also a truck and I use it as such, so it's bound to happen. You do have power outlets in the bed of the truck. They're only on when the vehicle itself is in accessory mode or powered on, but you have a 12 volt on the left and you have a 110 or 120 on the right. Between the wheel wells is more than 48 inches. It's 48 and an eighth. So you can fit plywood all the way in, laying on the bed all the way to the front. That's full-size truck stuff. And all the Rangers, this is not a Ranger Raptor thing. This is all Rangers have 48 inches between the wheel wells. The only other mid-size truck out there that does that I know of is the Honda Ridgeline. And I didn't want a Honda Ridgeline. So this was it for, well, that's not why I bought this truck, but it's super cool about it. I really like it. And then the last thing in the back, underneath back here, you have auxiliary switches 3 and 4. It's two 15 amp switches, circuits that you can turn on from inside in your overhead. You've got those 6 switches and they're both back here. It gives you a ground and the power at 12 amps, or I'm sorry, 15 amps, 12 volts. So I have those powered up to run some lights that I had back here before I put all this, you know, bed cover stuff on it. And then that's just a rooftop tent. I've only used it once so far. I bought it used for like 600 bucks. But again, I was trying to do this on a budget because I bought all this stuff new from my truck in Hawaii. And then I sold it when I sold that truck. And then I had to buy it all again. And my wife was getting mad. So I had to buy it all used. But honestly, it was going to be used the day after I bought it anyway. So I was fine. This rack, the whole thing, 400 bucks, 600 bucks, 200 bucks. What else did I have to do? I think that's it. So again, $1,000 for this whole setup and $200. So $1,200, I got my entire overlanding kind of setup. I also built a shower, but I'm gonna do a whole video on that tomorrow. So come back for more. I'll show you with all this stuff out set up with a tent. I've got like little hammock swinging chairs that I hang off the back. Pretty awesome. The beadlock capable wheels, I talked about how heavy they are. It is what it is, but they're beadlock capable. They are not beadlock wheels. So this trim ring on the outside, that if you were gonna make them beadlock, you take the trim piece off, you pop the bead out, you put it back on the outside of the inner rim, and then you pinch it with a different trim ring that you buy from Ford or aftermarket. But that trim ring for the set of 4 is almost $1,000. So yes, these are beadlock capable, but they are not beadlock wheels that can be transformed into them for free. So if you buy the $800 or $1,000 kit, you take the ring off, you take it to a tire shop, they pop the bead on the outside, and then they squish it in here, and there's like twice as many bolt holes. So there's holes here all the way around. I don't think I'm gonna do it. First of all, it's not street legal. You see it all the time, but if you get pulled over and you're being kind of an ass and they wanna get you on as many things as they can, if you have beadlocks set up, they are not street legal, especially, I know in Virginia they're not, I don't know about the rest of the country. But anyway, beadlock capable, not beadlock wheels. And it says it right on there, beadlock capable. I know what beadlock wheels are. I've never had them. And I thought these were, when it said beadlock capable, I thought that meant take the ring off, pop the bead out, put it back on, and now they're beadlock. I didn't realize you had to buy a special rim, or a special ring. It is what it is. We talked a little bit about it when I was talking about the ZR2 Bison having all the undercarriage protection. So in this vehicle, you've got the bash plate up front that kind of protects your, just the whole front end as you come in. And then you've got a skid plate protecting the engine oil pan, which is plastic. But then right behind the engine oil pan is the transmission pan, which is also plastic. It is tucked up maybe 5 or 6 inches higher than everything else, but there's no protection there. So that would be pretty horrible if you scraped along your engine oil skid plate and then came down on your transmission and you're out on a trail and a rock, like, first of all, you'd be an idiot to get that far and keep going. But if somehow you high center, like you're on a rock and then once you're over it, you come down and something punches a hole in your transmission. I mean, a plastic or metal, a rock is gonna make it through either one, but there's no skid plate there. So I'm gonna be looking for more skid plates, especially for the transmission. I'm not too worried about, the transfer case already has one. The gas tank is just plastic and I don't think it's like a self-healing gas tank or anything like that, but if you puncture your gas tank, yes, you could light a huge fire, which would suck and ruin your truck. But if you put a hole in your transmission, you're putting a lot of money into fixing that. If you run out of gas, yes, it's gonna suck. You're gonna have to somehow get out of there. but a gas tank replacement is nothing like a transmission replacement and whatever else you screw up in there. So I don't know why I'm still talking about this. Anyway, undercarriage. You have skid plate for the engine oil pan. You have a skid plate for the transfer case. You have a skid plate for, I think that's it. You have engine oil pan, front differential, transfer case. The rear differential does not have any skid plate, but it's a huge beefy differential. I mean, worst case, if you screw up your rear differential, you drive home in, 4 high or something like that, and your front wheels pull you home, and then you take it in and pay the bill for, pay to play. You go out and you do something stupid, you're gonna pay. But anyway, suspension in this thing is so great. I mean, the Tacomas I've had, the Gladiator I had, they were capable, but they were not comfortable. This thing is so comfortable. When I say it floats, it doesn't float in the sense that you don't feel like you have control, but when you're going faster over some of the, when I first got this thing, I was just going so slow. Like the first week I had it and I went off-roading, I was going so slow, being so careful. And then 2 weeks later, I went back, hit a little harder. 3 months in, so like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I went out there and I don't want to say flying because I was being safe, but I was going a whole lot faster on these spots. And when there was a long straightaway and I could see no one was coming, I was hitting it and getting up to 35, 40 miles an hour on this pretty rough terrain. Getting the front wheels off the ground a little bit, not with a tent on it. I put this on recently. I wouldn't go out there and do that. I did put the load box, I'm all over the place. I did put the load box reinforcement brackets on here. So if you don't know already, this truck bed is not made to have weight up above and put on the bed rails. It can haul stuff in the truck bed from the factory, no problem. You put anything up on top of it, and where the frame of the bed comes down and goes over is just sheet metal that's bent with like a tiny little crimp in there. And if you put a bunch of weight up here and you're getting this back and forth motion, eventually you could actually buckle the bed. No other truck I've ever had did I have to put my own braces on it to put stuff, an overland setup on it. But this one has to have it. If you buy this type of rack from Ford, they will put those on there for you. If you don't, if you want to go out on your own and buy it, you've got to put them on yourself, or you've got to buy it yourself and then you can take it to them. But so it's $160 to buy the brackets and it's $189 to have Ford install it. I did a video on it. It's not hard to do. Tools in your own front yard, you can get it done. You don't have to take the wheels off. You don't have to lift the truck or anything. You just got to take the liner, the felt liner from inside the wheel well, and then get in there. You're going to be under your truck. You're going to get dirty, but it's totally doable. But anyway, that load box reinforcement is a requirement for anything over 88 pounds, or a very strong suggestion from the engineers. And I'm pretty sure if you put something heavy on this and you bent it and you took it in and said, hey guys, I'm under warranty, they're going to say not for that because you broke it on your own. So again, I put them on there. I did a video on it. You can find it on my channel. I think it took me like 2 hours to do the whole thing, maybe 3 hours. I talk about it in the video. But again, not super hard to do. The only tool that you would need to buy if you don't already have it is a heavy-duty rivet gun. So most rivet guns go to 3/16, and of course, this one is a, like a 7/32 or something. So it's just big enough that you can't use a regular rivet gun that you buy from Lowe's or Home Depot, but Harbor Freight had it for $12. So I just bought the Harbor Freight version. I was able to get the rivet in there. I don't even have the rivet on the driver's side. I only have it on the passenger side. So you could put it all back together without putting that rivet in there. It'd be fine. When I bought this thing, the drive shafts were completely covered in rust. I mean, I bought it brand new from the factory. If this was a 3-year-old truck, I'd be like, oh, drive shafts are rusty, whatever. Brand new truck I got under it. The U-joints were completely rusted. Drive shafts had a ton of flash rust on it. And yes, I understand it's cast iron. It's gonna happen, but it's a brand new truck, man. My wife's Toyota Sienna is 13 years old and has 0 rust on any of the drive shafts because they're coated. They've got like black paint or some sort of coating on it. In the Philippines and Australia, the drive shafts in the Ranger Raptor, this exact truck, are coated, so they're not getting any rust. But in the United States, they didn't coat them, so they're all rusty. If you look at a Chevy Colorado drivetrain that's like 6 years old, it's completely rusty too. It is what it is. It's standard. It's not like the rust on your rocker panel where you're gonna end up like putting your foot through the floor eventually. It's a drive shaft. It's just surface rust on a big, thick chunk. I mean, it's a tube. It's not a solid piece of metal, but it's pretty significant metal, so it's not gonna rust through. I still went down there, got as much of the rust off as I could with some pads and sanded it down and everything, and then I painted it, and it looks really good now. But again, I did a video on that as well. So that was one of those things where I took it in and said, is this normal? They said, yes, it's normal. Everybody on Facebook said, or on YouTube was like, dude, it's a drive shaft. It's normal. It's gonna rust. But in my mind, when I looked at my wife's 12 or 13-year-old Toyota Sienna that had no rust, I was like, I can't accept it. So I got under it and did it myself. To each their own. Some people are gonna be like, that's a waste of your time, and it probably was a waste of my time. But I'm happy that I did it. There's no physical owner's manual when you buy this vehicle. This is the first vehicle I've ever owned where it didn't come with a book that told me what was where. And that's important to me because, like, if a fuse goes or something like that, I like to be able to open it up, take it to the fuse box, orient it the same way, because sometimes you can't even see the numbers on those things. So if you had like a version of it, and it comes with an owner's manual, but it's in your infotainment screen thing. So you go in there, or you can download it on a PDF and like have it on your phone, but that's not very big. Anyway, I wish there was a hard copy that you didn't have to pay. I think it's like $89 if you want to buy your own. But you could download the PDF and print it and have a binder in your truck or something like that. That just seems excessive to me. And it's like 600 pages. So anyway, that's just a little thing. I've always had an owner's manual where I could open up the pages, and really, I use the example of fuses because that's kind of a standard thing. That's something that's expected, that if you have a vehicle and a fuse goes, you should be able to fix it. They give you some spares, you have extra fuses. That should be the first thing you check if something electrical is not working, is if you blew a fuse. But you get in there, and when you do take the covers off the fuse panels, there's no numbers in there. You can't really see, so it's awesome when you do have the book. You put it right next to it, you see the orientation, you're like, all right, number 16 is the 8th down on the right-hand side, 8th down on the right-hand side, you pull it out, it's bad, you put a new one in. If you're coming inside and it's at this angle, and you're trying to do your spatial reasoning, and you're like, all right, so it's here, it's gonna be up there, and then I'm turning around and I'm looking at it this way. So anyway, I'm making this harder than it has to be, but it's frustrating to me. I wish I had a physical owner's manual. It's something that I can make happen for $89, and to be honest, for a $60,000 truck, I should just go buy the $89 thing so I can stop complaining about it. But I paid $60,000 for my truck. I want an owner's manual with it, not in the infotainment system. And I keep telling myself I will download it and put it on my phone. I've never downloaded it. I always just look it up and look at it, and then I forget to save it, because then I'm done. I put it back in my pocket and think, oh, I wish there was a owner's manual. All of that being said, now it sounds like I don't like this thing. I freaking love this truck. This is my favorite vehicle that I've ever had. Like I said, I've had 20 different vehicles. I've had a bunch of BMWs. I've had the Gladiators. I've had the Explorer ST. I've had the Focus ST and the RS. I've had 2 Tacomas. I've had a bunch of old S10s and Sonomas, both 4-wheel drive and 2-wheel drive. This thing is the best of all the worlds. I would say, like, yes, I do wish I had my M3 on some roads. I do wish I had my Explorer ST when I'm taking the whole family down to Florida or something like that. But those are like very small use cases. And to be honest, I'll just rent the vehicle that I want on that 1 or 2 times a year when I want to go do something like that. This thing is awesome all the time. Driving in traffic, the adaptive cruise control is phenomenal. It'll come to a complete stop for you and then start again when traffic goes. On the freeway going 75, it's a freaking windbreak. The whole thing is just a brick, so you're getting terrible mileage. The faster you go, you know, the resistance is something times velocity squared. So when you square your velocity every 2 or 3 miles an hour, you're going a little faster over 70, you know, you got to square that, and your wind resistance is going way up. So I think if you went everywhere at 55 miles an hour, you could probably get 20, 21 miles per gallon. But when you drive like a normal person and you're going 70 or 75, you're getting at like 16 miles per gallon, maybe 17. It's not very good. If you tuck in behind a semi truck, and I'm not talking close, like adaptive cruise control on the closest setting where it's still safe, you do get a whole lot better mileage. So if you find a semi that's going 75 and you're happy going 75, tuck in and you'll get good mileage. But again, I didn't buy this truck for good mileage. I bought this thing because it's fun, and it is a lot of fun. And I love putting it in my little Raptor mode where it's set to sport everything and just getting on it, getting on the freeway. It's awesome. It's super fun for such a heavy vehicle, 5,700 pounds, I think. So it's definitely big. And then I've added a bunch more. Like when I put the sound deadener in there, there's another 30 pounds on the roof and the doors. And then this thing here, that's 110 pounds. The rack is probably 25, 30. The tonneau cover is another 20. And then I keep all that crap in the bed. So I'm hauling around an extra 500 pounds, and then myself another 200 pounds. So when people tell me, oh man, you took this sports car truck of yours and you put 30 pounds of sound deadener, I'm like, yeah, it made it way quieter. I could afford to lose 20 pounds, but I haven't. So obviously it's not that important to me. And I'm not going to autocross in my Ford Ranger. I take it off road. I have a blast in it. Now I'm still talking. It's getting dark. I'm getting eaten by mosquitoes. I love this truck. It's my favorite vehicle. I am the only thing, and I've said this in a previous video, the only thing I would trade this for is if the Ranger Raptor in the future comes out with a Ranger Raptor R, kind of like the F-150 Raptor R came out with the big supercharged V8. If they put the 3.5 from the Big Brother Raptor in this, or if they do something, if they put a Coyote motor, or they do something crazy with the Ranger next generation or 2 generations from now, I will trade it in for that. That's something I would trade. I didn't want the full-size Raptor though. I drive in and out of DC. I know people drive full-size trucks and it just looks miserable to me driving a full-size truck in the city. This is big enough for me. I like driving my BMW in and out of DC. It was comfortable. This is a little bit bigger, but not terrible. A full-size truck is just not something I wanted to deal with. If I lived in the Midwest, I would probably have gotten the full size, but I wouldn't have gotten the Raptor R just because I couldn't afford it. If they come out with a Ranger Raptor R that's like 80 grand, you know, I would expect it to be 15 to 20 grand more than this one, and it better be worth it. It better be awesome, but I will probably trade this in for that. Other than that, there's not anything on the market right now that I want that's in the same price range. If someone said, hey man, I'll trade you my full-size F-150 Raptor R for your Ranger Raptor, of course I'm gonna do that. And I'm gonna like it and it's gonna be awesome and I'll just deal with it driving in and out of DC. But you know, that's also a $50,000 more expensive vehicle than this, plus the markups on that. So, I mean, probably even more than 50 grand more than this. But again, rambling on. Buy a Ranger Raptor, they're awesome.
It's over!